All right, so welcome to another one for Al Cuerpo Boxing, to the body. Let's get with it. Let's talk some boxing. So now we are, what, 7 days away from Canelo versus Terrence Bud Crawford. Or rather, I should say, Saul Canelo Alvarez versus the great American Terrence Bud Crawford, right? Live on Netflix September 13th. Get your popcorn ready. Get them cervezas ready. It's going to be a great fight. I forgot who's the co-main. I want to say it's Mbili versus Martinez, but it might be the other two young cats, right? The Vargas versus no, I forgot the other guy's name. I apologize for that. But nonetheless, it's gonna be a good card, right? You also got Steve Nelson on there, and we got the return of Marco Verde, who's a rising Mexican star, right? So, again, now 7 days away from the fight. Every day it gets more brewing and brewing. We get more heated debates online. And of course, from the pros and industry, every day by day, probably new predictions show up, new perspectives, new outlooks about the fight itself start to rise. And so I guess this video will be a response on one, Tim Bradley, and I guess Terrence Crawford's latest physique, right? Now, let me just say this before I forget. What I mean by forget is because I don't know which one I want to start off with, Bradley or Crawford, right? The physique. So I'm going to go with Crawford. So I've been asking other mates on the tube and other social media questions about the authenticity of pictures, right? Because unfortunately, guys, unfortunately, right now we're in an age of crazy apps that can doctor physiques. Like, I don't know if it's crazy, if it's sad, it's unfortunate, or it's beneficial. I really don't know how to interpret this. But for those of you that don't know, that aren't really tech savvy with apps, or just that know what's at play right now with like AI, I mean, there's a lot of fun things that you can do. I'm even trying it myself, to be honest, with the AI world. It's very complicated, but you got to learn somewhere. But doctoring photos isn't too new, to be honest. But nowadays, because of AI, there's better there's better tools than before, right? Like literally, you can add a 6 pack or an 8 pack on people with non-existent abs. Just think about that for a second. Like you can tone a non-athletic person to look shredded. That's the best way I can say it. And as apps keep getting better and better, it's just you'd be surprised. So then, regarding Crawford, I would think about how much are they really trying to sell this fight, right? The authenticity of this fight. And the reason I say that, guys, is because I've seen pictures of Crawford before, and I've seen some videos of Crawford in general, like recent videos, and it's like it doesn't match the photos. Or it could be, for those that work out, you can be super shredded in the moment to take a photo one day, and then the next day you can look a bit softer, depending how you're rehydrated, the nutrition, you know, I mean, the calibration in general. It's just, there's a lot of, how would you say, variables, details involved in a sport such as ours where every day counts as the days go by when you're trying to make a certain weight. It's not so much that Crawford needs to try to make 168. That's not that at all. It's about how is how Snack been preparing Crawford towards September 13th. And I've had my opinion before regarding Terrence Crawford and Snack, previous athletes that have been on Snack. For example, to dethrone David Benavidez, right? Was there much emphasis on Dimitri Andrade's camp, right? Because for the longest, guys like Tim Bradley, maybe Andre Ward, but everybody was claiming that Demetrius Andrade was the most ducked fighter for a while, right? I mean, the eye test was there, the skills were there. He's kind of like a pre-hyped version of Jerome Boots Ennis, if you wanted to interpret it like that, right? Which, by the way, Jerome Boots Ennis was with Snack too, once upon a time. Or more so, the question is, do such great elite fighters, prodigies in the game, do they really need Snack? All right? But let's say that Snack really does give you that edge, right? Strength and conditioning and nutrition to give you enhancement. Whatever the science lab world of Snack gives you, right? You're supposed to benefit off that, let's say, significantly. So where was that with Andrade versus Benavidez? The way Andrade was throwing shots on Benavidez, would he have done the same thing had he not been with Snack? If some of you say, yeah, I think so, he would have had some success. What we saw would have been no different. Well, then, what does Snack really get you? What does it give you in preparation for a fight, right? Of course, we know Benavidez is bigger than Demetrius Andrade in general, right? Right? Andrade, guys, Andrade could have bulked up to be a light heavyweight, right? Or let's say Snack could have done the favor. Let me repeat that for you guys. Snack could have done the favor and hype to prep up Demetrius Andrade with more muscle mass, kind of like the way we are all focusing on Terrence Crawford. They could have hyped up Demetrius Andrade, Snack being, the guys to dethrone David Benavidez. Which, by the way, David Benavidez was also with Snack once upon a time. So I'm not sure if maybe Snack wanted to go in that marketing route where a current Snack fighter like Andrade would dethrone a former Snack athlete like David Benavidez, right? It might be. There might be some things like that where maybe Snack was not interested in marketing it that way. But nevertheless, where was Snack for Andrade and the bulkiness to dethrone David Benavidez, right? Because ideally you want to go off the losses from Kyron Davis or maybe even Ronald Ellis, right? Just think about those type of losses, or even like Darrell. So Andrade should have been a stepping stone, in contrast, a boost in using Snack to have better success than them with Demetrius Andrade to dethrone David Benavidez. But it wasn't there, right? Same thing with Danny Jacobs, right? With Snack. Couldn't dethrone Canelo Alvarez, right? I believe there was even a stipulation with weight with Danny Jacobs, right? With the morning weigh-in, if I'm not mistaken, where Danny Jacobs chose to not even do that. He paid the fine, but nice strategy from Danny Jacobs. At least he went all out and did it, right? Same thing with Caleb Plant also. Caleb Plant Snack, right? There was a lot of focus and pressure. Andre Ward, Stephen Edwards, a lot of cats wanted to dethrone Saul Canelo Alvarez. No different than Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley hyping up Crawford to dethrone Canelo. That same type of energy was with Caleb Plant to dethrone Canelo Alvarez with Snack, right? And I've said before, guys, that maybe overdoing Snack, or as Caleb Plant said, overtraining using Snack, was some of the reasons why he had no interest to fight Canelo Alvarez after the Vincent Feigenboots fight. That supposedly he overtrained. All right, think about it like this, guys. In the history of boxing, there have been guys that have turned around and having fights sooner than waiting later, right? And ideally, when would you want to do that? When would you want to have a fight quickly versus a prolonged date, right? You would want to do that if in a fight you didn't sustain a lot of damage, right? Caleb Plant versus Vincent Feigenboots, guys, that was an easy fight for Caleb Plant. As a matter of fact, I don't even think Caleb Plant got touched bad in that fight. So what's the problem? So Caleb Plant thought he overtrained, but that could be a metaphor in saying Caleb Plant wanted a longer, harder training for Canelo Alvarez. He could have just said it like that instead of saying he overtrained, because that's a lie. Yeah, you overtrain for Fritz and Feigen boots, but that resonance of overtraining when you don't have a hard fight, that's going to benefit you in the next camp that you go to, right? And hence the motivation being the bag with Canelo. So, anyways, that was the first round of Caleb Plant not wanting to fight Canelo Alvarez, right? And okay, so that was that. We were talking about how did I start it off? We were talking about Bradley, right? And I guess the physique of Terence Crawford, right? So yeah, let me conclude about Demetrius Andrade, right? Where were the physiques of Caleb Plant and Andrade, maybe Danny Jacobs, in selling a fight with Canelo Alvarez? Because you don't even need to focus on going up in weight, right? So we know that. We know Jacobs, Plant, Andrade, they don't need to go up in weight. Well, maybe David, Andrade, yeah, with David Benavidez, right? But we didn't see much of a marketing tactic in selling a different physique of Andrade versus David Benavidez, right? We didn't see that. Why not? If you can provide it, do it, show it, right? For example, right now, what we see with Terence Crawford, that physique is because of what? Or rather, some of the physiques that you've seen Terence Crawford bulk up and husky, sorry, you see that snack t-shirt, right? Promoting the enhancement from snack for Crawford for a fight with Canelo Alvarez. But we didn't get that with Andrade and Benavidez. Just think about that for a second. So let me fall back about my idea of photos being doctored. In my honest opinion, guys, I think these photos that we see of Crawford, they're being touched up a bit with effects. Easily, easily. I wanted to do it myself. Like I wanted to do it like a little test. Get some photos before and after. You guys know it. There's plenty of apps that can do that. You can add muscle, make it a bit bigger. And why you want to do that? Because again, they're trying to sell. And I always mention the word commercialism. The Saudis are trying to hype up Team USA versus Mexico. And all pro Team USA, they like that, right? Why are they going to root for Canelo? That does a disservice in being Team USA. So we get that. I always said it's more of a kind of like Olympic nationalistic approach more than these immature YouTube themes about race and ethnicity. I don't even, it's not even that at all. Maybe you can kind of insinuate and sell those ideas, but it's not that. It's not that. All right. So speaking of Team USA, let's go back to the original point or topic with Timothy Bradley. Timothy Bradley, who throughout the years, he's gone from formal consistency, right? Let's say that of ESPN Top Rank, even his times on HBO, we had a more formal Discord, more a formal diplomatic version of Tim Bradley. But nowadays, I'm seeing a Tim Bradley that's very kind of maybe scripted, you know, in character, off character. I don't even know how to describe Tim Bradley as of late. It's kind of like you want to be honest. It seems like maybe Tim Bradley's like maybe having a couple of drinks before doing his uploads, right? You know, he's retired. Why not? Timothy Bradley looking out of shape as of late, right? All bloated. He's enjoying the retirement life. It could be. I give Timothy Bradley benefit of doubt that maybe he's trying to sell his own channel. So he's going a bit off character. I guess that's what I want to see, right? Off character. Character being the more natural, what we know of Tim Bradley. So I guess he's off character. But guys, what I don't like is sometimes we do a disservice in boxing in misleading fans in that if you're a fan of Tim Bradley before, we're talking about the boxer Tim Bradley. I think Tim Bradley's doing a bit of disservice about what it is to take risks and maybe even moving up in weight, right? So I have some good examples for you. For example, so Timothy Bradley in his latest upload, he's talking about that Canelo is soft and being lazy. Now he's got to be taking the piss to say something like that. One starting off to say he's soft. I don't know if he's referring to physiques or saying the machismo. That is, I mean, Canelo has taken harder fights than Timothy Bradley, so I don't know where Timothy Bradley is saying that. The second thing is being lazy, where Canelo Alvarez is the more active fighter than Terence Crawford. So those contradictions alone, you have to ask yourselves: is Timothy Bradley, is he trolling? Is he being off character? Like, what's up, man? Like, what's up with that? Is that the booze talking? It's possible, guys. Is it maybe, I don't know, maybe Tim Bradley's is on some meds, man. He might be on some drugs, to be honest. I'm not talking about drugs off the street. I'm just saying like some formal, prescribed drugs that he takes. We know that Bradley had some problems before, in his times where he had lost to Manny Pacquiao. He had disclosed that he went through real hard times, kind of similar to like what you guys know with Ryan Garcia, with his overturned result with Devin Haney, right? He went lost. I don't even know if it was before that. I don't know. I don't care, man. But again, guys, going off character. And then he mentions that Canelo didn't fight David Benavidez, right? Okay, so check it out here. And this is how we know this stuff is really, it's either fumblage of trolling, or maybe they're being sincere, and maybe there's some real, true, genuine insecurity from Team USA. How do I know this, guys? Because I'll give you an example. Um, why use Benavidez? Why use it? And I'm going to use Bomac's own words, all right? Because sometimes when you leak, when you say things and you're not really focusing on what you're saying, or you're not being careful with what you're saying, sometimes you whistleblow your own insecurities. Let me repeat that. Sometimes you whistleblow your own insecurities. All right? So, for example, Bomac had said, we should have been at 168 a long time ago. I even did a video about that, guys. And many of you, I'm surprised, a lot of you, I even put the thumbnail with David Benavidez in that picture. And I didn't get responses about David Benavidez. And I'm like thinking, I'm curious if fans really understand the context of what's at hand, the circumstances of what's at play here. All right? So let me remind you guys, my thumbnail, David Benavidez, the word 168, or the number 168, Bomac's disclosure of information about his own fighter, Terence Bud Crawford. Okay, just rewind that a bit, go back a bit, and use that. Try and use those words, combine them, formulate it. I don't know how good luck, good luck. But I'll help you out right now. Okay, I'm about to freestyle a bit again. You guys like it when I freestyle. So Bomac said we should have been at 68 years ago or a long time ago. So I want you guys to interpret that. What does it mean by a long time ago or years ago? Was that 2 years ago? 3 years ago? I mean, with respect to long time ago, long, let's say maybe 4 or 5 years, right? Some of you might say, no, no, don't go too far, Cuerpo. That's too long. Let's go closer. Let's say 3. Okay, whatever whatever you guys want to do with that. All right. But here's the thing. Bomac had mentioned 135 and 140. He literally said that in that same sentence of talking about we should have been at 160 a long time ago. So what does Bomac say? He says, well, we wanted to try out 135, 140. If we could do that, why not do it, right? But here's the thing. How long ago was 135 and 140? Guys, that's more than 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago. Guys, Bomac himself said a long time ago, and he mentioned 135 and 140. So to help you guys out, for those of you that don't want to feel insecure right now with these revelations of fumblage of words, right, of what Bomac is saying, I'll help you guys out. And let's say we want to go not too far back to the 135 and 140 years. We'll give Crawford benefit of doubt that he wasn't that big anyways, okay? He didn't acclimate in that time. So we'll cross out 135 and 140. Don't get spooked. Let's go by saying long is 5 years ago or 4 years ago. What does that mean, guys? All right, I'm going to land the plane for you guys. 5 years, long time ago, 168. Let me repeat that for you guys. Long time ago, 5 years, 168. Who was at 168 5 years ago? Let me repeat that. I'm going to ask that question again. Who was at 168 5 years ago? Canelo Alvarez, Caleb Plant. Do you want to include Billy Joe Saunders? I don't know if Billy Joe was in that mix in that time, but whatever. I'm going to keep it to three. Let me go back. Caleb Plant, Canelo Alvarez, and guess who? Who did I have in the thumbnail? David Benavidez. Did I land the plane like nicely? You know when you guys are on a flight and it's some crazy ass turbulence and like you're thinking, man, all I want is a badass landing on the pavement. Like we're talking like a smooth landing, right? A smooth landing on a bad flight. That's what it was, right? That's what I just gave you guys. You know, in cruise control, in autopilot, just land that nicely, right? So let me repeat that again. 5 years ago, 168, right? And let me skip to one name, David Benavidez. So what does that mean, guys? Could it be that Bomac and his crew, the reason they didn't go to 168 is because there was a guy called David Benavidez? And as other channels, they mention you just want Canelo to do all the leg work or all the dirty work, right? So keep in mind, there were already champions at 168 besides Benavidez, besides Canelo, besides Caleb Plant, right? There was a mix of guys there. And of course, we know Canelo Alvarez became undisputed, right? Oh, but let's go back a bit. Bomac just said we should have been at 168 a long time ago. Guys, process this. Process it. This is why I always say to guys, be careful with what you say. The verbatim, the testimony of what professionals say. And for those of you fans that give others benefit of doubt to say, well, they didn't really mean this. Keep it 100. Keep the standards equal because you guys say, well, this boxer said this and this boxer said this, but it's okay for one boxer to say this and the other boxer can't. Don't act that way. Don't do that, man. Don't do that. So let me land another plane because I see another plane coming. I'm gonna try and land this one too. And that's a badass plane too. It's got a lot of pogs in there. All right. So a quick recap in case I get lost in the sauce here. 5 years, long ago, 168, Benavidez. Hell, you could even include Canelo Alvarez. If Terrence Crawford through Timothy Bradley, right? Because Timothy Bradley is now selling Crawford as like the messiah of boxing. Timothy Bradley is selling Terrence Bud Crawford right now as the messiah of boxing, saying he's too skilled, he's going to destroy Canelo, right? All this stuff. If that's the case, could it be that Timothy Bradley and the world of Team USA, that includes Team Crawford, is it possible that they were hiding away from 168 for such a long time? Long time. 5 years. 168. Were they hiding from 168 for a long time because they knew there were threats at 168? And it's better for industry and fans to blame and use Canelo instead. Yeah, let's have the fans mention Canelo and Benavidez. We don't got to do it, right? And then here comes this rich Saudi outfit. Here comes Saudi sports washing. And now a bag comes. And now you want to take a fight at 168, right? Ideally, guys, in the passion of the Messiah, in the passion of boxing, when you're a bona fide badass, forget the money. Let's talk about legacy. If you're a bona fide badass, you want to go up and take challenges, right? Take risks. Take risks, right? So again, guys, I have all these dots connected in the last 15 minutes that I've been mentioning what Bomac's been saying, what Tim Bradley's been saying, the physique, guys. You know, fans are so in awe about Crawford's, in my opinion, a bit doctored photos. Maybe not. I don't know. Yo, shout out to Snack. Yo, good job. Shout out to Snack. If that's all true and genuine, then doesn't that prove that Terrence Crawford should have already been at 168, guys? Wasn't Mayweather fighting bigger guys, but he still did it, right? Didn't Canelo Alvarez, even though he lost to Bivol, didn't he already try 175 twice? Isn't David Benavidez now just recently? Now he's just barely going to 175. He says he wants to end his career at heavyweight. We got David Benavidez' father, Jose Benavidez, saying Hamza Shiraz could easily fight at heavyweight in the future. He's saying Hamza's already a cruiserweight. So aren't we acknowledging latency? Aren't we acknowledging different standards? And shout out to all of you content creators that say this, that have been saying that there is always double standards for other boxers. And it's probably without a doubt that Canelo Alvarez has probably the biggest double standard in boxing. I don't care about it, whatever. You can't change fans. In 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what's on paper will stand the test of time. That's all timeless. So I don't really get into the moment of now. With me, I want to train my boy. So it'll be something in the future. I don't care so much about now. All right? But for those of you that know, sometimes you exploit the moment. You live too much of the moment, and that's good. That's good for boxing. Hype it up as much as you can, as much as you can. But sometimes we don't talk about bias, nationalistic bias, right? Maybe that's good. Maybe I'm doing myself my own disservice, my own philosophy, because I'm a natural born American. I'm American. So in theory, I should be Team USA, right? But you guys know me. I'm a transparent. I mean, I like Bud's style. I'm a switch it up myself for myself. I like Bud's style more than Canelo, but it may be interpreted because I can't do things that Canelo can do as far as technique. Canelo is more of a prodigy than Bud Crawford. Started even younger in the pros. You have to credit that, guys. Don't downplay it. Canelo's more of a prodigy, in my opinion. You know? Just like boxing fans in the world, they have Ronaldo and Messi, right? They both have great attributes. They're both badass with their own techniques. They're both physically different physiques, right? They are different physiques, different contrasts, and guess what? Fans like that. Fans don't even, I don't know. I don't know about boxing fans. I know how hardcore they are in the world, but it's good that we have that contrast. That'll be a long debate. Who's better, Ronaldo or Messi? I like them both, by the way. Amazing footballers, right? So that can be said about Canelo and Crawford. And let me just go off here with Tim Bradley's, what he's talking about soft, or he was avoiding David Benavidez. Again, guys, David Benavidez has already built his own lane. He's going northbound. He's probably going to go to heavyweight. All these guys are going up, including Crawford. Guess who did it first, guys? Guess who was already doing it first? You might say, well, he had an advantage because he's the money man. Yeah, it's Canelo Alvarez. And I always say this, it's not Canelo Alvarez's fault that he's got a country backing him stronger than other fighters. It's not his fault, right? But you can say that that money also motivated him to take risks faster than others. You know? We like to say, or some fans like to say, well, Canelo's not a 2 times undisputed. Canelo's not a 2 times. All right, that's cool. That's fine. But the fact of the matter is Canelo is the fastest undisputed champion right now. Within the undisputed champs right now, all right, Inoue and Usyk right now, right? And then we got Canelo. And then if we want to add Crawford, that's fine. But Canelo is the fastest undisputed of these pound for pounders right now. You got to give credit to that, man. You got to give credit. All right? If you guys want to downplay Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant or Callum Smith, if you guys want to downplay that they weren't great champions, whatever. I ain't even going to debate that. Each to their own. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. And you can match that with other resumes with the other champions, if you will. But back to what Bradley's saying about soft, right? What I don't like is, and I think there's other content creators have mentioned this too, is using Benavidez, right? Like you have to contextualize Benavidez as Canelo being inferior to Terrence Crawford right now, right? A la Tim Bradley, which doesn't make any sense at all. The last example of people feeling salty, like straight up live in a broadcast, was Amir Khan, right? Amir Khan, who he said, right, when he got sparked out by Canelo, he said, well, I showed my balls in the ring. Now it's time for Canelo to go fight Triple G. Like, this guy literally said that. I don't know if it's word for word, but I'm paraphrasing here. But he said, Canelo Alvarez got to have some balls like me, and I'll go fight Triple G. And then his coach, Virgil Hunter, who's the coach of Andre Ward for years, right, said the exact same thing, right? That he needs to fight Golovkin. And what does Canelo Alvarez do? He fights Gennady Golovkin, and he finishes that nemesis saga. And I guess fans that were probing at that didn't like it because Canelo went and did it, right? So, guys, I want you to absorb all this information right now about what Team USA, what this sense of insecurity is coming from. I believe it's more about Team USA more than uh, racial divide narratives, you know? American boxing right now, they want Terrence Crawford to beat a Mexican star. That's all it is. Nothing to do with color and all that kind of stuff. And shout out to the Americans for wanting that. May the best man win. But let's slow down and hit the brakes about calling guys soft or using other fighters, right? Calling out Benavidez or Khan calling out Triple G for Canelo. Guys, those things don't work. It don't even work because Benavidez again is doing his own lane, and Benavidez is probably tired of that narrative as well, right? He's got yard. He wants better Biev. He's talking about Surdo, right? He's even entertaining the idea with Opataya, and he himself and his father are entertaining heavyweight guys, divisions that already supersede Canelo Alvarez. So how much do you want to have a chip over your shoulder and use another fighter's name to defame or diminish the current stars of boxing? Easy work. I landed that plane blindfolded, and I'll catch you on another one for Al Cuerpo Boxing to the body, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.